good to go.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the Port Authority meeting of Tuesday, February 18th. Please stand for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please, Tammy.
Yes, sir. Chairman Dale Masad.
Here.
Member Carl Roth.
Here.
Member Jennifer Jordan. Here.
Okay. Do I have, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes, and do I have a motion to accept?
Mr. Masad, I've had a chance to look at the minutes. There is one item I'd like to point out on page 6, item 3. Day Beacon 36 is referenced as one of the beacons that was approved by the U.S. Coast Guard. Day Beacon 36 does not exist. Hopefully they meant 38, but that needs to be clarified in this document. But most importantly, we don't have approval for Day Beacon 38, which is the one that we need, which is where the current sign is. But we can talk about that.
Okay.
But this is a change here that needs to be made. But with that change, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from the November 19th, 2013 meeting.
I also want to just say on that same page above signage update, the members spoke briefly of possible funding measures and beach replenishment. I don't recall talking about beach replenishment.
I do not either.
We'll have a look for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay?
Other than
All right,
that.
with that-
They're just typos, nothing else content
Okay.
related.
Do I have a second?
Sure, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have no announcements. Agenda, waterway signage placement assessment. Board thoughts?
Mr. Masad, if I may, I had created a document, meant to have it sooner for your review, but on this document, it highlights the marks that we have approval for from the U.S. Coast Guard, and then where we have signage on marks that are not approved by the U.S. Coast Guard. And as we discussed last time, we wanted to kind of understand if the spacing seemed to make sense to have a discussion. So for purposes right now, we have approval from the Coast Guard for number 13, and we do have a mark there, so that's good. We have marks on 12, signage marks on 12 and 16. Those were not approved by the Coast Guard. And then,
What was the reason those were placed then? Do you know?
well, I think the perception is we had approval from FWC to place things on U.S. Coast Guard federal markers, and we did not have that approval.
Okay.
So the letter that came that we discussed at the November 19th meeting was the first approvals that we'd got from the Coast Guard, and it clarified those that we could put waterway marker signs on. It did not say which ones we could not, but those are the only ones that were approved. So on this schematic, the ones that were approved were 13, which we have a mark on, 18, which we do not have a mark on, 23, which we have a mark on, that's the check mark, 28, which we have a mark on, 26 was approved, but we have no mark, 33 was approved and we have a mark, and 36 was approved, but 36 doesn't exist. So 38 is where a mark exists, but we have no approval. So
Okay.
that has to be resolved with the Coast Guard. And then we also have approval on 10, which is not within the city limits of Port Richey as far as I know, but we have approval to put a water main mark there. And 10 is the next red out the channel that's off this schematic. Now, the other items that I think are important for us to be aware of is that the new pilings that were set, the one near 12, the one near 18, and the one there on the point, there is apparently no approvals for those because they do not appear on the notice to mariners. There was no reference to those piles in the letter that we received from the Coast Guard. So intrinsically, since it hasn't been posted to notice to mariners, one could conclude that those still are illegal marks from a federal jurisdictional standpoint. So
Which ones were those?
those are the piles that exist between 12 and 16, near 18, and near the
Okay.
point. Those were new piles installed in the November, December 12 timeframe that had currently the signs on them, but the signs that are on those now are idle speed, and those are incorrect signs. They need to be slow speed in this area. So they're
They're the ones that indicate that once you go outside of those signs, you are allowed to run, correct?
no. The only place that those exist now are on 13 that resume a safe speed. There's one sign left on 12 that is a slow speed, but there is no sign outbound that says resume safe.
Right.
Okay.
But it was my understanding from Port Ritchie Police that once you get past these piles that have the markings on them for idle speed, that you are allowed to run.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that's correct. I was purely discussing what
Okay.
we have federal approvals on
Right.
and what we don't, and more importantly, the spacing on these markers, because that was the kind of the crux of our discussion. What's adequate spacing to get boaters' attention that they need to follow either a slow speed or a idle speed
Right.
in these zones? So, and that was the intent on this schematic here, was to show, this is kind of, I didn't address the 19 overpass, of which there's signs there for idle speed. So essentially, if we got 38 resolved with the Coast Guard, 33, 28, 26, 23, 18, and 13, in the core channel that our ordinance covers, those are the places that we could use Coast Guard markers. And we're eligible to put, or approved to put signage on.
Okay. All right, let's see, let me just, say, is that condensable into maybe a paragraph that, we could present to council? Oh, and like a
As-
bullet point, 38 36 doesn't exist, 38 probably it.
I think the bullet point is that we need to, the Coast Guard letter that I believe is dated October, I don't see a date. It's dated in October. I don't have the date on it, but that letter needs to be followed up with the Coast Guard to clarify 38. So that would be one item.
Oh, start writing these, or you want me to? Clarify 38, go ahead.
Clarify 38 and assure, well, clarify 36 is in error. So we need to clarify that they meant to say 38, not
Okay,
36.
gotcha.
And that would take care
And
of,
that's for marker or signage?
that's for approval to put signage on marker 38. We need approval to put signage on marker 38. We do
And
not
there
have
is
that.
not,
There is signage on marker 38 right now.
but we don't have approval.
We don't have approval because they
Okay.
approved signage on marker
Okay.
36.
Okay, that would be next bullet point.
Okay. Then the other things that we need to do is we need to remove the signage from 12 and 16 because they're placed there illegally.
And also from the pilings, or is that change
Well,
signage?
the pilings, my suggestion, I mean, I've talked to a couple of regular boaters in the harbor that run in and out, and they're a little concerned on the locations. But the first issue on the pilings are that they're incorrect per city ordinance.
Okay.
And if we wanted to.
This is 12 and 16.
No, the piles, the new piles that
The
were placed
pile.
adjacent to 12, adjacent to 18, and off the point on the south side.
Okay, new piles
Those,
at 18, 12,
and on the south side of the river, on the shore. Those piles need to be discussed with the Coast Guard for approval because currently they are unmarked pilings that, these are the things that I think there's a potential liability risk to the city.
Okay, so those just need to be addressed with the Coast Guard?
And get approvals for their placement and get their locations. Because that information apparently I don't know if there's any information from Mr. O'Neill on what went forward to get the signage approval on the day beacons on the letter that the Coast Guard responded to, but there were no references on those piles. Do we have any idea what was submitted to the Coast Guard?
The permit modification is pending, so, obviously, this is the first time I've seen this, but, what I would suggest is if you could give us a descriptive narrative of what you think is appropriate, and I'll follow it up with Taylor Engineering.
What is pending?
The, permit modification that'll allow for the changes that you discussed, and, the removal of, I believe it's 12 and 16, or the
That,
change out. So, you know, I haven't seen this or had a chance to review it,
okay.
so,
The,
you know, if you could give me a description, I'll get some answers on it.
okay, just for your edification, the Assistant City Manager described the approval letter from the Coast Guard for these. That was received in October, so there's no pending approval from the Coast Guard to our knowledge at this time.
Well, I'm under the understanding that we're still waiting, so.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Roth, from now on, please go through the chair to the floor. Okay, so if I understand it, you're going to produce a narrative.
Right.
And at the request of the city manager, you will, present that to the council next meeting.
I can.
Correct.
I will submit a letter to the chair, and then we can submit that to the council through the updates that we provide to the council.
Or we can do that by next Tuesday.
I can get you a letter,
Okay, be there.
okay?
Well, we need to have it tomorrow.
Okay,
We do the agenda tomorrow.
Okay. Well, you're just gonna agenda our board, and this,
We'll fall into it.
should be sufficient that he's gonna produce a narrative. Okay. Anything more on signage?
Nothing that I can think of right now.
Okay. Let's move on. Project funding options. Does anybody have any discussion on that? Because I don't have any.
Mr. Chairman, we talked about this a little bit, but I don't have any new information discussed. What we started having the conversation, we ran out of runway on, was what those potential options were so we could get funding for things like the boat launch, the Nix Park and the ramp, other waterway improvements, other sources, and kind of compare those potential sources with things that the city's aware of as far as being able to get funding. So I believe Ms. Jordan had some ideas. I had mentioned I had some, but I have not done the due diligence to really
Okay.
vet
We
those
table
out.
that till next time.
I found a grant that is possible for us to submit to under the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. That's a National Coastal Wetlands Conservation Grant. It closes June 27th of this year, and it functions towards either restoring hydrology or restoring water quality.
Okay.
So those are some things that we could possibly submit projects to if we get together our ideas on.
Okay. Do you have, is there something we can print out so we
Yeah.
all are working on the same?
Like the grant submission information? I have the grant submission information, well, just the first page, cause it's multiple pages for the actual grant. But I don't know how we can go about bouncing ideas around and formulating an actual proposal without continuing to have to do it through meetings.
Just a question, when we talk about coastal wetlands and hydrology, what would that translate into to a potential project, you think?
If we think that Miller's Bayou is not well enough circulated, that could be a project that could get funded by this grant. If we think we need some dredging to go underneath the roads here so that Miller's Bayou has better outflow back into the Gulf, that's something that could be funded by this grant.
Okay.
If we want to restore water quality back to Miller's Bayou by, changing the way that runoff goes into Miller's Bayou or testing the runoff that goes into Miller's Bayou consistently, that could fall under this grant.
Let me make a comment or two. Runoff is one thing we can do. Going under the road, we've already dealt with the DEP on this, and they wanted us to do this to allow the flow that you're talking about. When we got to the point of doing it, Deborah Gedzoff said, "We don't know what's in Miller's Bayou. You're never going to be able to." Don't shoot the messenger. We're never going to allow you to go under that road and pollute Salt Springs.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we can look at
So
runoff,
and water quality.
and water quality is going to be dredging. I mean, in the long run, if these canals are dredged just for numbers, 1 foot below the depth of the dredge in Millers, then when the tide comes in, it comes in, and when it goes out, these canals will drain into Millers, and there'll be more of a flow.
Right.
And those are the only two things I know, unless we want to revisit the DEP, and that was a long run for a short slide.
Okay.
So, okay. And to address whether or how we do that, I think you're gonna kind of, if you can kind of just get it out here, then maybe we'll have a workshop. I don't think we're allowed to do it all out of the sunshine.
Right. Okay.
I don't know how we'd make any money with it, but, so if you could put like a sketch together, maybe for next
Yeah,
meeting, just,
I can
if it
look
takes
into
us
it.
3 or 4 meetings, oh, no, we got till June 27th.
See?
Put a sketch together and see what we can do,
Okay.
or
Between
consult
that
with
and
Tammy.
also.
If you have time to consult with Tammy, she's an expert in grants.
Okay. We also, and that was just the cusp of the iceberg. I mean, I didn't get into looking at
Right.
a lot of other websites. So, there may be other opportunities out there that have further out closing dates that give us some more wiggle room.
Okay, let's go to Waterfront Park Pier. We've already made our
Wait, did you
thoughts
skip
known to
Blue
the
Wave?
council. We got no,
I'm sorry, sir. Did
You
you want
s-
to talk about the Blue Way identification?
does anybody have anything on that? I did miss it.
That was another one we kind of ran out of gas on, but we had talked about this during the budget process as far as there was potential monies available to put in place and identify some potential blue ways, linking potentially the parks
Right.
together in Port Ritchie, tying those into the saltwater circumnavigational trail that goes around, and then connecting up to Grays. So being able to get consistent signage, identification around that,
Right.
and all was kind of the basis of this, but we never had the discussion
Right.
about what the thoughts were. That was the initial seed that was planted a while ago, but we just haven't gone further with it.
I think that kind of got lumped in on our agenda so we could get it in time. Do you want to address that now, or you want to table it for the future?
I guess my question is, we have monies that could go towards this as per part of our Port Authority Board.
We don't have anything
Budget?
budgeted at the current time.
Okay. Could it fall under another budget for parks?
There are items that are budgeted that probably won't be spent, so the CRA could use its discretion and reallocate some funding that's currently budgeted if they so desire.
Okay. I'm guessing this is something where we would basically have to draw up the picture of the signage that we want, and then from there, city council and the other, or some of the other, city departments could take it from there and implement it?
Yes, it probably is something that should go to the CRA board.
Okay,
And, you know, once again, I would see that as something that would require permitting. And so we would need to proceed with permitting, and then the signage would be installed subsequent to permitting, provided that the CRA board approves it.
okay,
I guess I have a procedural question in that we advise city council, what's the appropriate way to connect with the CRA board for funding? Is that something we would go to council first and then ask for time on the CRA schedule, or what's the appropriate?
I think we go straight to the CRA,
Okay.
unless anybody has a different thought.
You could attend any meeting that you want, and also during the budget hearings, would be a good time to bring that up.
Right, which we did last year.
Yeah.
So before we, do we want to have some discussion on what our current thoughts are about that, just to kind of get us all on the same page?
for the Blue Ways?
Anybody
Right.
have any? You're out of my wheelhouse. I don't kayak and I don't have any thoughts. So this is gonna be your two.
My only thoughts were to go in and see what other places have already put in their parks for signage as far as referencing the Blue Ways, and then try to draw up something that is very similar, but, you know, applies to where we are gonna be and what our citizens know about water and things like that.
The little bit of due diligence that I've done is that I'm not aware of anything that we have amongst our 4 parks as far as
Right,
here. I know there's references up at Gray and along the Newport Ritchie parks about canoeing and stuff, and most of the references are through the kayak clubs and whatnot that talk about, there's a trail here that runs from Gray Preserve down the Cody River, and then certainly the circumnavigation trail. But other than those websites, there's no signage or anything that makes notes talking about distances, how far, and those types of things. So conceptually, one of the things that we talked about early on last year was potentially getting a uniform sign that we could
Right.
place at least our 4 parks. Maybe before going to press on that, having some discussions with, say, Newport Ritchie Parks and Recs or any of the kayak clubs to say, hey, this is what we're thinking about. This kind of shows the distances, you know, from park to park, and making sure those things from a signage perspective was kind of the extent of the thoughts that it.
So there's not any, current regulations as to how far, where, anything. Maybe a, letter to the various kayaks clubs, asking them for some directions, what they would think would be,
useful.
useful to them. If there's
Yeah.
no state or county regulations, we're gonna have to develop some.
Well, input is good.
Right, yeah.
Are you familiar with anybody know the
I don't know
what
the
it was.
kayak clubs, but I'm
Yeah.
sure Gildog has to be familiar with them. I could definitely run it by them.
You want to do some outreach on that?
Yeah, we can
Okay.
find out some more
Okay.
about that.
All right, we'll let Jen run through Eric, and maybe we could get some identification back to next to Waterfront Park. We made our suggestion. I don't know, the council's willing to spend $2.6 million on the Waterfront Park, but they haven't made any decision, to my knowledge, on just replacing a worn-out pier.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, what I was thinking about with these items on the agenda was just what's the current status? If anything's changed
Oh, okay.
since the last time, during our last meeting.
Well, I would say no change, to my knowledge. You got it?
I'm not aware of anything, so that's why I just put it on here. Or if there's,
So at this point, we are going to present to council your narrative
on the signage.
on the signage.
Mhm.
I would say, ask for clarification on what they want to do on Waterfront Park.
On the status on these 3 items?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Or I was gonna just go for Waterfront Park, because we haven't made any, to my knowledge, we haven't said anything about Nix or Limestone. But there's no point in spending our time spinning our wheels if we're not being considered. So I would say one would be narrative, and 2 would be, question their decision on how to proceed. If you remember, we wanted to go with design, build, and engineering, compare the costs. And replace the park, the pier. Nothing's happened.
Right.
So I don't know. I think I would like the permission of the council to just bring it back up and ask for some of their thoughts.
I would concur with that approach.
Would you would you want me to make an update on that?
Sure.
Okay, this matter in a capital projects discussion has been on the council agenda, CRA agenda first and the council agenda second, on 2 different occasions. They just, with regard to the Waterfront Park Pier, they have not yet reached a consensus on what they want to do. So I'm waiting for direction from them on what they want to do. With regard to the Nix Park boat ramp, the paved area, the access and the loop, if you will, is on the next street project. And that was on the last agenda, deferred to the next agenda for paving and reconstruction of the area that's accessible to the ramp and out to Bayview, I believe it is, the street. And the Limestone Drive Pier, we have authorized a structural assessment on that to determine if there are any repairs that we can do cost effectively to do the repairs and put it back into service.
Okay, how much does that assessment cost?
Approximately $9,000.
Okay. All right,
Maybe a
so-
little more.
Okay. If you let Taylor go, it will be. Okay, so, that's our updates. What
So-
I would like to, I'm sorry. Go ahead, ladies first.
All right. So the Nix Park being on the next street agenda, you said?
That's correct.
And that includes the paving of the street leading up to and the
Yes.
parking lot itself, but not the ramp itself?
That's correct.
Okay.
The area between the ramp and the roadway is severely deteriorated and will require complete excavation and
This is which one?
Nix.
Nix Park.
Oh, okay.
And so the idea is that we go in there and we reconstruct that area and probably we'll be able to get by with the resurfacing of the entryway to Nix Park and the loop itself.
So at one time, I know there was discussion about an engineering assessment being done on the ramp. But to my knowledge, that has not taken place or has been approved by council or CRA.
Once again, I put that on the agenda and they haven't reached any consensus as to what they would like to do with it.
Okay. So perhaps we could be helpful in re-escalating that to have some discussion around it.
Okay, well, my thoughts always on Nix Park are, this little city keeps it tip-top, and the county basically uses it. And I believe that it should have, everybody should pay to launch there, and everybody should pay to park there. and I don't know, we got some of the documents from Tammy, I don't know, I did not get over them. Do they allow us to do that? Is that an allowable thing?
We can charge. We
For-
just can't differentiate between city residents and county residents.
Well, you know what, I think makes a lot of, maybe, would it be, yeah, I guess it'd be differentiation if we left 3 slots for the city or, had a city sticker if you're parking in one of 3 slots, I guess there's 12, 15 slots. Is that different?
It's a decision of the council.
Okay.
Or,
Well,
Is
how do we go to, let's put up something to charge to float your boat out?
It's a decision of the council.
So you can make a
Okay.
recommendation if you choose.
Do I have a motion to go ahead.
I'm sorry. Just to clarify on this week in charge, that is not the discussion I've heard in the past at council concerning Nix Park. Can you provide clarification as far as the basis of that?
Well, it's my understanding that we're allowed to charge a parking fee for use of the ramp, as long as we can show that the money that's derived from those parking fee revenues are strictly confined to the maintenance of Nix Park.
Okay, so
And
if we had are we talking about just parking fee or parking fee and launching fee?
A fee.
I mean, when they launch, if there's a,
See, that's why I wanted to hear a clarification, because the parking, I thought there was a possibility. The launch piece, my understanding from what I heard at council was that we were precluded because of where the funding originally came from. So that's why I wanted to
remember
understand.
something along those lines as well.
Okay, so that's why I wanted to make sure, if I'm hearing something different tonight, I would just want to,
Well, that's
Make
my
sure.
understanding, that, you know, we
Okay.
charge one fee, like they do at Anclote. I believe they charge a fee at Anclote. And we can't make the fee different for city residents as opposed to county residents. But we have to budget and show that any revenues derived from those fees that were charged are strictly dedicated toward the maintenance of Nix Park.
Okay.
don't think that'd be a horrible accounting
No,
thing.
wouldn't be a problem.
But I'm still confused. Can we charge for the launch as well? They launch and they go park, Guild Dogs or those parking places over there or wherever. So we have X amount of parking places at Nix Park, and I would say 15, 12, something. We could charge for parking. But there's many, 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 many boats that launch and then go park in one of the parking places that may be legal, may be illegal, I don't know. Can we charge them to launch their boat?
I would think that you could, as long as you direct it and dedicate it back toward the maintenance, once again, of the park. I just see some problems with enforcement of that, because I would think you would have to have somebody there to really enforce whether or not that they could go park, for example, on the seaside property or somewhere else. You'd be hard pressed to do that.
I'm not interested. If they parked on the seaside, that's fine.
Yeah.
I just want to charge them $5, put their boat in, take it out, and while they're tearing up our ramp. I mean, and
What
not
I'm saying
But
is that
how do you
you'd be,
enforce it?
you know,
I'd say you put a kiosk in there and you put your $5 in and raise
and then
it.
once again, that's a
Raises
decision
the
of council.
Okay.
Right.
If council
So,
says do it, we
anybody
do it.
Have a problem with that idea, or you just want to go with parking first? Or you want to go parking, charge for launching, or both?
I think if the parking's legitimate, I'm hearing two different messages on the launch part, and if we can delineate what's correct,
Well, I
then-
think what I've heard is we can do it, it just may be a problem on launch. So if
yeah,
everybody
parking
is,
is,
if
if we,
everybody's okay with this, I'm gonna just try to keep us moving.
okay.
I would like a motion to ask council to put in, charge meters for the Nix Park parking places?
Are you talking about parking meters?
Well, a meter,
Or are you
meter,
talking
it's the
about a
only way I know
kiosk?
how to do it.
Well, there's a cost associated with it, so you have a kiosk that has to be maintained, and I don't know
Well,
what
I'm
those-
saying, this kiosk, he says, is gonna be a difficulty, maybe.
No, let me back up just a second to where, make sure I'm clear on it. You could put in a kiosk, like is in Starkey Park, like Anclo, like Rogers Park up at Weeki Wachee, and it's one fee. You go in there and you're supposed to buy a ticket, you pay, in many cases, it's $2. I know the last time I launched at Weeki Wachee at Rogers Park, it was $2. I just think you'd be hard pressed to enforce it if they park somewhere else, because, we're not gonna have people there as an attendant on the park. They could easily park and go pay the property owner at Seaside.
I think you leave it as putting up a kiosk for parking fee for
To
if
go
you are,
in.
if you are parking there.
Is that what we're thinking? If you go in,
You pay a fee.
well, you pay to get in. Whether you launch or park, if there's no parking places, you go park
You
somewhere
can
else.
do that.
If there are, you still park for that entrance fee, correct?
Yeah, and that's all
That
doable,
makes sense for now.
that's all doable if
At
the
least
council
every
elects
boat
to
gets
proceed.
charged.
I would be happy with charging every boat, I just don't know. I've not heard a clear delineation on what we can do on the launch component. For entrance to the park,
Let me,
and based on what I heard at the other council meeting, the why this is tabled and not proceeding forward was that there's some issue associated with how that was funded originally
right.
that precluded the city from doing that, that's why they tabled it. Now, the whole parking piece, we're talking conjecture now, from what I heard from Mr. O'Neill, that we don't have a definitive answer. Now, if we're comfortable putting something we don't know the answer on forward, so be it. My general prerogative would be, let's make sure we have an understanding of what is correct, make a good recommendation to council on what's sound, and then I'm all over that. So if we're talking about parking, we would make a recommendation. We believe a kiosk is an appropriate way to go. I'm okay with that. The only caveat is, I am not aware of anybody in the city that has the ability to go and collect monies out on the street. We don't have parking meters. We have no mechanism to do that. So I wouldn't want to put a burden on the city that we don't have an answer for. So I would prefer to have that discussion with the city management before we made that recommendation, because I don't know if it's feasible or not. So I don't want to
I
recommend.
don't think it's, number one, I'd rather ask forgiveness than permission. I absolutely think, this just keeps going, we just keeps going, table. Let's find out what we can do. Hey, put a kiosk at the entrance. If you launch here, you pay $2, $5, whatever it is, put your money in, the thing goes up. If you park for free, because we're not gonna put in, meters. So everybody that goes in to launch pays $2. They put their money in the kiosk, it goes down, that's it. End of story, and it doesn't cause the city to have to, am I missing something? Am I being too simplistic?
Well, it's my understanding that the city can do that,
Okay. Do I have a motion?
and that's a policy
And
decision.
listen, it isn't like we're putting
I
this-
understand.
They gotta do this. Let's just,
understand.
All right,
make it move.
I'll take a shot.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to, for us to consider, for city council, the potential to put a kiosk in at Nix Park to charge for parking and,
No, to charge for launching. Because if
Entrance,
they can't park, then we're cheating them.
charge
Once
for
they pull in to launch, they pay.
Entrance
an
fee,
entrance fee?
It's an entrance fee.
an entrance fee.
Because they,
can't
and
discriminate
parking
between
fee
entrance
if there's
and
any
launching.
parking. But we can't promise them parking.
Why don't you make a motion?
Okay. I would like to make a motion to ask city council to look into putting a entrance fee kiosk in Nix Park.
Okay? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Pass. Aye.
Oh, right.
And nay, 2-1. Okay. Let's move. Okay. We're gonna add a little something so we can move along here, but the mayor has reached out to me and she has, some equipment that might be able to be used for the dredging if the city bought it. It's not a new idea. We floated this 7, 8 years ago. Cape Coral does this. It's probably one of the best ways to go for this city. And I have no information on it. And my only concern, Tom, is we're apparently in touch with some company that we're going to have a demonstration. I've already been to Cape Coral. I've seen the demonstration twice in Cape Coral. This isn't different stuff. And I am all for it. And I left the mayor a message. I'm all for it. I'm with you. I'll help you. I'll do anything I can. But when we're at the point of having a demonstration, wouldn't it seem like the appropriate thing that this board would have heard of it? It can't have been, we're gonna bring you a demonstration and 5 days later it hits. This has to be, I know Jim Priest told me about it 2 or 3 months ago. He had one, knowing that he and Eloise are good friends. I'm quite certain that this has been floating along a while. Isn't it, don't we either need to have an amendment and not have this board, or don't we have the right to just be in the loop?
I would advise you to talk to her.
Well,
This is something that I don't know a whole lot of information on. It's something where she's had discussions that I haven't been a part of, and I listen, and so you're probably best to talk directly with her.
Well, all right, I'm gonna pass the gavel to you, make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to ask the council what our exact, how we will serve at their pleasure, and when are we in and out of the loop? Because to go to dredging, and this isn't part of the motion, to go to the dredging equipment with us unaware of it, and although she did call me 3 or 4 days ago, but obviously there's been a lot of discussion. Where does this board, what are we supposed to do? We're all busy, we all have lives, we dedicate a lot of time here. And I just feel like if it's gonna be Waterway and just, you guys can go and meet and then that, have an amendment. Get rid of the Port Authority Board, we don't need you. Or run the damn things through us. So my motion is, I would like to ask the council what they think our raison d'etre is.
Mr. Councilmember, could you clarify that as far as what your motion is? Your motion is to, or I'll make an attempt and you can, you have a motion to ask council what the Port Board's role is in things like this potential dredging solution that's been discussed.
That's pretty much it.
Okay.
What is our reason? Why are we here?
Okay.
What is our
If the
goal?
biggest thing in this waterfront is dredging, and it's never even come here, why are we here?
Do we have a second?
Okay, in short, what is our reason for being? Where do you expect us to be? You wanna say it and just, let's have it from Carl. Copy this down, I don't wanna do it twice.
Basically, the Port Authority Board would like to have its role clarified by the council on how we're supposed to be involved in these items around the port and the waterways, like this dredging example.
Okay, you got that?
Yes, sir.
Do we have a
Okay,
second?
all in favor?
All-
Second, all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Done. Any other things? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Wait,
Well, don't adjourn. If you don't have a motion, I can't do it.
you done?
I can't think of any other things that come to mind.
That's fine.
Okay, so I'll,
Do you have something?
So,
We will stay.
no, well, my question is to have clarification on what is going on with the dredging then. They got,
That's the point. We're the Port Authority Board. All I know is the mayor called me and said something. I called her. She left me a message. I left her a message. I had my card game last night. I couldn't talk to her. She's out of town. That's all I know, except for I talked to Jim Priest. It is a equipment that it can be hydraulic or clamshell. I think it has a rotating front like the one in Cape Coral. I'm very familiar with all this stuff, but it never came by us. And that's my reason for this motion. And I'm assuming that Eloise will bring this forward somehow.
but this is just merely a technique to dredge. There's been no discussions to our knowledge, or we're not sure as far as where this may be applied, how it could be applied, funding for it, how it would be paid for. Any of those things have not been discussed to our current
From
knowledge.
my understanding, those have been discussed.
Okay,
Do you know, Tom?
I don't know of any discussion on that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I've been
So-
told that there is money there, and I don't know.
since
I
our
want
last meeting,
to
we've not-
recognize the audience. Would you like to say anything? I apologize. Okay. So that's all I know.
So since our
At
last
some
meeting,
point,
there's
we're
been
gonna
no
hear about
progression
it,
on the dredging
and
front.
I appreciate Eloise calling me, but I really wish it would have been sent up to this board. So,
Please, 1 second.
okay.
So since our last meeting, there's been no progression on the dredging topic.
Only the discussion that the chairman brought up that I'm aware of.
Okay. Is it on the docket for something soon? Anything?
Not at this point. It could
We
be.
don't know if Eloise has,
agenda.
needs to have an agenda for this. Does she need to pitch it to the city council or another board of directors or anything?
That's why I said it might be best to, each of you have the ability to contact her, and for some more details. A lot of the details with regard to this I'm unaware of,
Okay,
and I'm learning as we go along.
okay.
Well,
Mr. Masad?
yes, Doctor.
Dr. Masad, you have
I have a what?
something you want to say?
I'm trying to think
Okay.
about how I want to say this. Again, if I'm applaud that we're going forward somewhere here, but it seems like the channels have been misdirected. I don't think we have to say anything for it, but if you're gonna waste our time, throw it through here. Obviously, according to the newspaper, this company is bringing this machinery to make a demonstration. If the paper is wrong, then that's one thing. If the paper's right, then we just, somebody did an end around. Timing's interesting, and I'm for it. I've been for everything that's dredging, everything. But I don't know why I'm up here. If we make suggestions, they don't take any action, and then now we're getting, we're bringing a dredging machine in, and we don't even know about it. It's actually kind of embarrassing. So that's all.
Okay.
Anything else?
So, are there any other discussions that we want to have before I pass the gavel back to Mr.
Give me
Masad
my
to close
gavel.
the meeting?
Doctor?
No,
Doctor?
I'm fine.
Dr. Masad, I'm passing the gavel back.
Okay,
I'll make
do I have
a
a
motion to end the meeting of the Port Authority Board.
Motion to adjourn, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Call. That's a run railroad, hey. Okay, Tammy, I have narrative from Carl.
Yep.
Decision on pier and recommendation for kiosk as entrance fee at the next park, only for May, correct?
Only for what?
Maintenance of Nick's Park. Fees,
Right.
fees at kiosks for maintenance.
Well, it's a use fee, a user fee that needs to be dedicated for maintenance of the park.
Right.
Yes, so you
Which,
don't have to redo this
that
one.
doesn't
Or
come
should
from
I
us,
keep it?
that
No, you can keep it.
Okay.
That's for you.
All right.
whoever
yeah.
collects the fee allots it back to the.
Well, I'm gonna leave it to Tom. You, whatever it has to say that says parachuting fee, then we'll make it a parachute kiosk.
Oh, I believe that's doable.
I think it ought to be